Assalamu alaikum dear viewers. I have a piece of good news to share with you that being requested by some of my colleagues and students. I am going to have a new series of discussion and it will be on IELTS. I'm sure that you know IELTS exam has 4 sections. They are reading, listening, writing and speaking, and in each section you have to approach a number of tasks, and also each task of each section has some specific marking scheme. That is, there are some particular criteria which the raters or the scorers look for in your writing, and you have to meet all of them or have all of them in your writing or in your answer to achieve a better grade. So in this series we'll talk about each task of each section, and also I'll show you different criteria or specified criteria and how to write that particular task, and of course what to write about regarding that particular task. And in course of discussion I will give you some tips and tricks which will help you to achieve a better score. In the first video of the series I will talk about writing task. In writing section of IELTS test you have 2 tasks to complete. In the first task you have an infograph or information graph. That is, you have a graph, a chart or a table having some information, and you have to describe in a number of paragraphs about the information presented there. You can have a bar chart, you can have a pie chart, you can have a table, you can have line graph, etc. So whatever chart or graph there is, they present some information and you have to describe the information in your own language. Okay. I'll give you some illustration. For example, this is a bar chart, and you see that the bar chart shows the population growth rate in Bangladesh from 1971 to 2019. In 1971, it was around 2, the growth rate was around 2, and in 1991 it was a bit higher than, it increased to 3. In 1991 then again it crossed 3, and it is the highest or level or highest in the trend, and then in 2001 it decreased to some extent, and then there is a steady decline from 1991 to 2019. So you have some important information in this graph. The first one is how much was in 1971 and how much it is in 2019. So what is the starting point and the end point? And there is a growing trend, rising trend, and there is a declining trend. And you can say that what is the difference between the population growth rates in 1971 and in 2019. So you should have all this information in your writing. I will not talk about what to write and how to write in this video. I will have another video how to write task 1, but in this video I will give you some the criteria which are considered for scoring or grading writing task 1. That is, you have to meet the criteria, and you know that there is a term called rubric. That is, you have to have some particular specific elements in your writing. For example, there are 4 elements or grading scheme or marking scheme, or you can say marking criteria, which you have to meet, and you have to have all the elements in your writing. They are grammatical accuracy, then you have task reflection or task achievement, then you have vocabulary or lexical resources, and finally you have to have unity, that is coherence and cohesion in your writing. And if you meet any of these elements, your mark or your scoring would be a poor one. So you have to be very careful of using all of them and accurately, of course. And in this video I will talk about all of them and some general information about writing task 1. Okay, here is the marking scheme of writing task 1, and the first one is, the first element or aspect is grammatical accuracy. So the first aspect of grammatical accuracy is range of sentence structure. You can go for simple sentences, you can go for complex sentences. Possible. The second one is tense. Your use of tense should be accurate. If information presented in the graph tells you something about past events, then of course, or past time, then of course you have to use past tense. If it talks about something of the future, you have to use future tense. If it is talking about something now, happening now, you have to use present tense. And if there is no tense available, then you can use present tense. So whatever tense you are using, you have to be very careful of using tense, and of course it should be relevant to the time the information is from. Next thing is voice. Some people think that using passive voice is always great, but indeed not. You have to avoid passive voices as much as possible and write sentences in active voice. And of course, in writing, in your sentence making, you have to be very careful of subject-verb agreement. That is, your verb should agree with the subject, that is a number and person of the subject. Another point is modifier. And I have shown you while describing the graph, the population growth of Bangladesh, that there is a declining trend, there is a rising trend in the population growth rate of Bangladesh. So many times you have to use adjective before noun, that is a modifier of course, and also before adjective you might have to use adverb. So these using modifiers is of course a good way of shortening sentences. So with modifiers you can express a lot of ideas in a short sentence. So that is why you have to have good ideas and you have to apply modifiers for expressing information presented in the graph. And the last but not the least is a degree. I mean degree of comparison. As I have already told you that here you have information over the years spread over time, and so you have to compare information of different places of different times. That is why you need to use comparative degrees to a lot of extent, and also you need to use superlative degree so that you can say when the information or when that particular element was at peak or at highest point. The second aspect of marking scheme for writing task 1 is task achievement or task reflection. It refers to how better your writing describes the information presented in the task. And of course, your writing should reflect or should have all the key information presented in the graph, and I mean all the important information as well. And you should avoid any personal analysis, personal prediction, and personal inference, of course. And you should not write about what you think or what it should be. Rather, you should state what is presented there. And of course, you should not miss any important information or any important trend or change in the presented in the information. And you should always look for the changing trend, when it was the highest, when it was the lowest, any increasing or decreasing trend presented there, etc. And of course, you cannot have a conclusion. You can have a summary in the last paragraph, but it is not a moral message. It is not a moral lesson. It is not a prediction. Rather, there is no personal reflection here. Rather, you should have a summary of the information you have presented or you have described in your earlier paragraphs. The length of your writing should meet some fixed criteria, that you cannot have less than 150 words. Okay, so if you have less than 150 words, that will have impact on your mark or your scoring. But I suggest you to write about 170 to 190 words, but never exceed 200 words. And how many paragraphs should you have in your writing? You should have 4 paragraphs in your writing. In the first paragraph, you should state the information, the general information. The second and the third paragraphs, you are just describing other information, important information of course. And in the last paragraph, you should summarize the information presented so far. So that is all about task reflection. The third marking aspect is vocabulary or lexical resources. It refers to your knowledge and your use of appropriate words, phrases or clauses in your writing. Do not use the same word again and again. See, you have to use the word difficult in the first sentence. Then of course in the second sentence, do not repeat this word. Rather you can use some synonym like say instead of hard, you can use difficult, or instead of difficult you can use the word hard. Or if sometimes you have to use the same word or same idea again and again. In that case, you can also change the form of the word and you can use a different class of word. Like if in the first sentence, if you have the word difficult, then in the second sentence you change the word into its noun form, or you can go for its adverbial form or verb form. So you can have different range of options for using vocabulary. Regarding vocabulary, you can have some specific choices because there are some words which frequently occur in this type of writing. For example, there are some possible adjectives like gradual, modest, sharp, okay, rising and falling or declining. It can be significant, it can be moderate, it can be important. These are adjectives. You can have some nouns as well, possible nouns which frequently occur like decline, increase, decrease, growth. You can have some adverbs like steadily, modestly, significantly. You can have some verb as well. For example, declines, rises, grows. At the end of this video, I will append a slide having most important nouns, adjectives, verbs and adverbs which you can use to describe or which you can use in your writing. The fourth aspect of marking criteria is unity, and unity is of two types. One is coherence and another is cohesion. Coherence refers to a link, of course it should be a logical link or bridge between sentences or paragraphs. So coherence is a link between the structural parts of an essay or a paragraph. And you can have this link using a number of devices. For example, you can use the same word repeatedly, or you can use different forms of the same word repeatedly, or you can have a substitution of the word that you have just used in your previous sentence. You can use pronouns. Of course, pronoun is a great way of linking between sentences. But you can also use different types of linkers, like as a result, but, so, therefore, however, etc. So you can use different types of linkers or linking devices to show that the sentences or the paragraphs or some structural parts of your writing have some kind of link between or among them. Second type of unity is cohesion. Okay. While coherence is a link between structural parts, cohesion is a link between ideas. That is, in one essay, you have to describe or express one type of idea, one idea only. You cannot start a new idea abruptly. You are talking about one thing and you cannot start talking about a new thing or new idea abruptly, and you should have a link with the previous sentence or with the previous paragraph or with the previous ideas presented. In every paragraph, you should talk about a single idea. In an essay too, you can talk about different ideas, but in each paragraph, you should talk about only one idea, and that will give a kind of link or a kind of bridge among the ideas presented. So these are the 4 marking criteria which are considered for scoring or marking or rating your writing. So you should be very careful of these things. You should know how to handle those and how to apply those in your writing. And in our next video, we will talk about how to write or how to use these ideas in your writing so that you can secure a better grade. Thank you very much for watching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.